Welcome to Pressure Points. Our topic is NHTSA filing a probe against Tesla. As of this recording, we're kind of 2/3 of the way through trading on Thursday as shares of Tesla are down about 0.8%. The Nasdaq's down about 0.3%. And I'm going to start with kind of overview of what's going on with NHTSA and Tesla. Second, talk about put this into context. And third, why I think this is actually a good thing for Tesla. And so back to the top, if you've been following along, the idea of NHTSA versus Tesla is nothing new. There's been jabs thrown between Elon and the organization and back. It seems that they generally don't like each other. And I just want to weigh in for a minute related to this most recent one is actually, I don't think that NHTSA, as I've dug more into this, I don't think that they have an issue with Tesla. I don't think they're going after Tesla per se. I think the reason why we see NHTSA and Tesla in the headlines so much is that Tesla just stands alone in this category of consumer autonomy. And so by definition, NHTSA is there for safety. And ultimately, there's only really one company who's in this realm. And so it's understandable that we see all this between Tesla and NHTSA, and we don't see it with the other car makers. I think it is just a simple fact. In terms of this most current investigation, is it sounds like there is, call it 2.8 million vehicles that they want recalled. Most likely that's going to be some sort of a software. They observed, I'm going to round the numbers here, 60 traffic violations and 14 accidents. Now, that is over an undisclosed period. And so that's kind of at the core here. One piece we don't know is this is within FSD running. We don't know what mode of FSD was running. The hurry mode is the one that is supposed to accelerate a little bit faster, be a little bit more aggressive on lane changes, but still abide by the traffic laws. Unclear if there's user adjustments to hurry mode that could kind of bump them above the speed limit. But as it stands, NHTSA wasn't happy with those 60 violations and 14 accidents. So that's the NHTSA piece of it. I'm going to go on to the second phase here, which is kind of putting in a perspective. So a few different ways to kind of slice this is number one, as I mentioned, we don't know what the context is, the time period of how long that this was measured for. Most likely it was for more than a year, but we're going to give NHTSA the benefit of the doubt and say that they did this over a 1 month period. So I'm going to focus in on those 14 accidents. Now, this isn't all the accidents related to all of Tesla's running FSD. It's just the ones that they're seeing. So that's an important piece here too. But if we just put that 14 number up against the total number of accidents in the US per month, it is a small number. There's about 500,000 accidents a month. It's crazy how often cars get into accidents. So if you put the 14 against the 500,000, it is a point, and there are 4 zeros, 2-3 percentage of the number of Tesla incidences versus what happens with the broader market. So it's pretty small. And Tesla's numbers a few months ago, every year or two, they come out with these studies that they do, which they compare the amount of accidents for running FSD, or I guess it's autopilot, versus a Tesla without autopilot versus just a regular car. And if you take a regular driver and compare that to a Tesla with an autopilot, it's about 9 times less likely. A Tesla running autopilot is about 9 times less likely to get into an accident versus just a regular person in a car. Now, that's Tesla numbers, and the only reason why I mentioned those earlier, that 14 versus 500,000, is it just, there is a piece here where we get a better sense that it is an order of magnitude less likely that a Tesla gets into an accident. I think that's a really important factor here. One other important number I should have mentioned, which is that about 2% of the cars on the road in the US are Teslas. So if it was a apples to apples, or if it was a comparative percentage probability of an accident, it would be at 2%. As I mentioned, it's 0.000028%, a much smaller number. And so the second point here is that is in Tesla's favor here. Their cars are safer. I think it's reasonable to take that away from this. And then the third, the pressure point piece is I believe that this is actually good for Tesla, and good for Tesla in the sense that good that they're doing this, that they're pushing this technology. I mean, the numbers to me are just tragic. Last year, in 2024, there was just under 40,000, 39,000 plus people lost their lives in the U.S. in car accidents. And that's up 20% since 2014. Now, the number of drivers on the road is up 12%. And so we're seeing more fatal accidents. And of course, the biggest X factor there is distracted driving. There's also been changes to legalization of marijuana, for example, which the Wall Street Journal reported that 40% of fatal accidents in one county that they observed was had some level of toxicity in the driver's blood. And so I think that overall, this is a really big topic. It's an important topic. And I just think it's a big advantage for Tesla because they're out there, they're trying to do this, and they're willing to take some financial risk around this. The biggest fine that they've had to pay has been called $250 million. That was earlier this year. That was a civil suit that was not brought against from NHTSA, but that was related to some autopilot in 2019. So again, tragic. It was a big number that they paid, as they should. But I put myself in the shoes of other car makers. I imagine if I'm on the board of General Motors or Ford, if you're on the board of those companies and you're looking at what's going on here and looking at some of the risks that Tesla has taken on, looking at that big fine that they paid, you have little motivation to really stick your neck out and make cars materially safer. Yes, those other car companies are improving some levels of cruise control, automatic braking, lane tracking. Those are a step in the right direction, but they really are not fully embracing this. You just look at what they've done with their relative autonomy projects. And my sense is, again, we put ourselves in the role of being in the board of these companies, is that it is an easier decision for them to say, let that liability land in the humans, because if it's on the humans, it's not on us. And I think that in the end is that Tesla, and I think Elon's first principles about trying to do this in a different way stands out. And I just applaud that willingness. No accident is a good accident. They're horrible outcomes, but the goal is to make traffic safer. I think Tesla is doing a lot more, and I think that the market is going to increasingly appreciate that about this investment story. On behalf of Pressure Points, I'm Gene. Bye for now.